Talk about two of the most common causes of death to chronic disease: heart disease, diabetes. As you know, prediabetes, impaired glucose tolerance. These are all different forms of really having issues with blood sugar. And when it comes down to, we have to remember that the relationship between glucose, which is blood sugar, and insulin is really important to be checking for. And that's what's a crucial element that is missing in much lab work that we see. And it's so important for us to be really looking at the balance between insulin and glucose, because insulin resistance is a real contributor to hardening of the arteries or arteriosclerosis, the process when the arteries begin to become obstructed and blocked. And when that happens, there's a higher risk of throwing a clot, which would then be called a stroke, and that's connected to heart disease. So what's important to know is that insulin resistance is a very important contributor to heart disease, even though insulin resistance is on the spectrum of diabetes. And this is the holistic nature of the human body. And even more holistic is the gut connection to all of this. We see when there's an overgrowth of so-called neutral bacteria, opportunistic bacteria, they call it, commensurate, meaning that they're okay when they're there in small amounts, but when they become overgrown, they are inflammatory. They're called endotoxins or LPS, lipopolysaccharides. There's a lot of research about that and how it causes inflammation and really causes this intestinal hyperpermeability, otherwise known as leaky gut. And when that happens, we get more food intolerances, food sensitivities, because these foods bypass the intestinal lining, and it causes our immune system to overreact. What happens is the gut is connected to our metabolism. The overgrowth of bacteria is connected to heart disease, which is connected to inflammation and oxidative stress. So you see the beginning of the process of the clogging of the arteries or the obstruction of the arteries begins with a white blood cell. And the white blood cell begins sending out cytokines or chemical messengers that begins this process of inflammation. And then that white blood cell becomes a foam cell and a macrophage, then a foam cell. And really that begins this process of arteriosclerosis, clogging of the arteries, begins with an inflammatory and an immune process. And so, therefore, we really want to make sure that we're controlling inflammation. We're looking for the root cause of inflammation. This is key. And what's also so very important is to look at the particle size of the cholesterol and the particle number. So we want to see that the cholesterol, if the cholesterol is breaking down to smaller particles, and the number of them, are they increasing in number, these very small dense particles? And that is a certain specialized test that needs to be looked at, because just knowing cholesterol is not sufficient. We want to know how that cholesterol is breaking down, because the key to this is controlling inflammation and oxidative stress. And if we can do that, we can really stop that process of clogging of the arteries. We want to definitely control insulin resistance, and we know with insulin resistance is a combination of hormones like leptin. You see, when insulin resistance, it's not just calories or sugars, it's also coming from the signaling of our brain telling us when we're full, when we're hungry. That's a hormone known as leptin, and we measure that because we want to know if, when there's insulin resistance, is it coming from the signaling from our brain? That's leptin. It also, there's another hormone that's called adiponectin, which allows us to see how well our fat cells are burning glucose for energy, how well our fat cells are really functioning. And so we really want to really look closely into this insulin resistance, into inflammation, oxidative stress and really improve the health of the mitochondria, which is what gives us our energy. But you see, in that process of giving us energy, it uses oxygen. And sometimes, if there's not enough antioxidants or vitamins or minerals or co-nutrients, it can release these antioxidants for which we need antioxidants. And that's where a lot of this oxidative stress comes from, the mitochondria. So we really want to see the health of the mitochondria and repair the mitochondria, giving it its co-nutrients, cofactors, activated vitamins, and necessary minerals and amino acids to really help to really optimize the mitochondria. So we are coming to the end of this Facebook Live. We're gonna replay it so people can see it if they aren't able to make it to this live. Please comment below and share it if you find the information to be helpful. Remember that it is important to make sure you're controlling levels of inflammation. You can check for that on blood tests. Elevated ferritin, elevated uric acid, homocysteine, C-reactive protein are just examples of labs that would let you know about inflammation. We also want to make sure that we're controlling for oxidative stress, which occurs in the mitochondria. So we're really looking into the health of the mitochondria, and we can also test for that. How we test for that usually is a urine test, which is a byproduct of the process that the mitochondria goes through. That what it goes through releases these byproducts in the urine, and we can see whether there's what they call lipid peroxides, or there's fat that is being oxidized, or that there's DNA being damaged, and we can see that in the urine, and that's really important. And we also want to check if there's inflammation of the arterial lining, and that's homocysteine. We want to really help control that, and usually it's just activated B vitamins and some co-nutrients. But with those very inexpensive vitamins and nutrients, we could really help with this very expensive disease known as heart disease. So remember, get to the root cause and optimize these underlying pathways, and we really can reach a level of healthy aging. So please share this and like it and comment below, and I'll read all the comments. Thank you very much. Have a healthy, happy day.